Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday's Writing Community Chat Show. I am thrilled to be here, especially with the guest that we have on tonight. I'm always thrilled to be here, which is, an understatement. I love this show, and the stories that we get from the show is always fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Already people in the chat, which is amazing to see, and a lot of support on Twitter recently as well. So, guys, thank you for your comments. And for those that listen on the podcast as well, it's amazing that you do so. We have a fantastic guest for you. And after I've done the Be a Token book promotion, I will announce to you a little game that we're going to start playing for every episode of an interview. And it's a chance for you to win some prizes at the end of the season, which, of course, at the end of this week is the end of season 6. There's going to be a little bit of a break just for a week, and then we're back with season 7, which is incredible. And again, that comes down to your support and your enthusiasm. So hello to you all. And let me get on with the Be a Token book promotion, which is a very different one today, which I kind of like. It's an actual person who is trying to promote their book using like a crowdfunder. And they're doing that to publish it that way, which is a bit of a unique story. So I will play their video trailer, which is a cool way. Instead of reading out the blurb, I will play you the trailer, and then I will explain to you a little bit about how you can help out if you want to. So the person sponsoring today's show with their book is NT Narbat of Ishq. Apologies for the pronunciation of that. And you can see on the bottom of your screen, it will run past with a bit of detail. And I will play the video for you now.
You have come so far from the throne, out here into the darkness, and yet for all your monuments, for all your power, you are still only human.
So there you go. That is a fantastic trailer there from our Be a Token sponsor today. Again, thank you for sponsoring the show. And up in the top corner, you will now see the book cover. That person is actually using a crowdfunder through something called Indiegogo. I'm not quite sure. And they are raising funds through this with a varied way of raising those funds and something to give back to you guys, I guess, if you commit to it. And they're looking at a target of around £6,000, and they're currently on 2.5 with only 12 days left. So I will leave a link to that after the show that you can click on and have a look if you want to support that. And it's a unique way of promoting their book. So well done to you, and thank you so much. Wonderful trailer, it says on the chat, thank you, and it looks very interesting. Indiegogo, that's probably what it is, not my pronunciation. So thank you for that, and let's get on. Oh, no, before I do that, yes, this is a new little thing I'm going to start doing, and it's basically, if you can guess what this book is from the cryptic clue and the anagram I provide you with, I will put the winner in a league, and at the end of that season, the person with the most guesses will win a prize. So it's a bit of a funny clue. This is a bit of a tester for you today. So that clue is coming up on screen now. Let me put it on a banner for you. 2 horny teens ruin everything is the clue for the book, and Doom Enter Julia is in fact the anagram. So if you can get to the book title, and it's quite a famous book, and type it into the chat, it will put you automatically into the draw. So here it is on the screen. Doom Enter Julia. There's the cryptic clue. Okay, so if you get that in the chat, it will automatically add you, as I said. Let's get tonight's guest on, because I'm dying to hear about this story and all the amazing things that this writer's done in their career. So he has written for TV. He's been a comedian in his time and a member of the Fun-Loving Crime Writers, which is a fantastic band made up of crime authors and musicians, including Luca Vesta and Val McDermid. He released his first crime novel back in 2001 and has an amazing writing career since, having nominated and won many awards and become a Sunday Times bestseller. His latest book, Rabbit Hole, was out last month. Please welcome Mark Billingham. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. All good. You know, the weather's nice and I've got a can of Iron Brew. I couldn't be happier.
Iron Brew, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's a strange thing to say the weather's nice in the UK, I guess. It's been on and off. But,
the weather's been so weird. You know, it's like, oh, I'm boiling. Oh, it's pissing down. Oh, you know, every 10 minutes. But touch wood, I think it's going to be all right for a few days.
Oh, unbelievable. That's the way in the UK, I guess. But there's a lot worse things going on in the world, so I can't really complain too much. But again, thank you so much for joining us. And we're honoured that you came with your fantastic hat and your creepy doll in the background with the guitar.
Hat and the creepy doll. No, the creepy doll's over that shoulder. I get so confused when I'm looking in kind of a mirror image on the screen. There he is. There he is. Hello, Charlie.
Is there a story behind Charlie?
I've always had a thing for slightly spooky stuff. I mean, if I move that way, you'll also see a collection of weird sort of dolls' heads and skulls. Look, you know, I'm a crime writer. I've got to be into weird, spooky stuff. But I've always wanted a spooky ventriloquist doll, and I was at a street market in Kent, on the Kent coast, and I saw him sitting there in a pram. And I said to the bloke running the stall, how much is he? And I promise you, if he'd said 50 quid, I'd have snapped his hand off. And he said, tenner? Well, you're coming home with me. So, yeah, he sat there in the corner ever since, although occasionally I kind of, in the middle of the night, I'll go and stick him at the end of one of my kids' beds. That's hilarious.
Oh, yes.
Hear them scream in the morning. No, I love it. I know some people don't, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, as a crime writer, I guess there's always a draw to the dark side, isn't there?
Of course there is, and you've got to have a hobby, you know. He's a bit knackered. He doesn't really work as a ventriloquist doll anymore. So he just sits on the chair in the corner playing an old Beatles guitar. So I love it.
Life says, I love spooky things, but dolls aren't my thing, surprisingly. But then again, it's in the classic horrors, they tend to come alive at night anyway. So maybe it doesn't work.
Yeah, I can see why that. I can see why they freak some people out. You know, if you've seen the film Magic, for example.
I've not seen Magic, no.
Oh, brilliant film with Anthony Hopkins about ventriloquists.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll look into that.
That'll put you off ventriloquist dolls for a while.
Fantastic. So, Mark, there's going to be people that know exactly what you're about, and there's going to be people that, you know, maybe don't know exactly kind of where writing came from in your life. Okay. And it's something I like to do on the show is rewind the tape a little bit and kind of find out, going back to, you know, before crime writing, you started writing that. Obviously, you mentioned that you wrote for TV or whatever that was. Where did writing start in your life, and what was the inspiration behind it?
Well, right. I mean, I've always written something. You know, for me, the best moment of any time I had in school. I mean, I quite, you know, one of those people that quite liked school. Whenever I got a chance to show off, if I was in the school play or whatever it was. But the best thing was when you'd write a story and the teacher would say, "Mark, come to the front of the class and read your story out." That was just the best thing. I was trying to write funny stories or whatever back then, but just that moment of standing in front of 30 other kids and reading a story out was such a rush. And so I always wrote something, terrible poems and bad plays and little short stories and stuff. No idea ever of doing it for a living. What I wanted to be was an actor. And then I got a job on a kids show called Maid Marian and Her Merry Men, which I was in for about 5 years on the BBC. It was a best job I've ever had, running about in the woods with a big sword. It was great. But towards the end of that, the guy that created it, Tony Robinson, said, "Oh, you write stuff," because I was also doing stand-up by then. And he said, "Oh, you write jokes and stuff. Why don't you?" So I got involved in the writing of that show, so that when it finished, I'd just become a kind of television writer by default. Still no thought of writing prose or anything. So I drifted into writing for telly, but sort of didn't like it very much. And at the same time, I'm devouring crime fiction. I'm hanging around on the fringes of the crime fiction community. I'm going to festivals and conventions. I start reviewing books to try and get them for free. I mean, basically, it was exactly that, just trying to get free books. So I start reviewing them. I start interviewing writers. I mean, I can remember showing up at the offices of Orion Publishers, shaking like a leaf with a dictaphone to interview Ian Rankin and Michael Connolly, people who are now good friends. You know, it's very weird, but back a couple of years before I was published. And the missing piece of the puzzle was always to try and write one, but I was just so daunted by it because the books are so bloody thick, you know, and I thought, how much work is that, you know, compared with a half-hour sitcom or a little animation or a whatever. And then I sat down on one holiday with the family and just wrote longhand in a notebook every night. Kids would go to bed, sit outside this villa in Corfu, wherever it was, with a beer, and just scribble in this notebook and started writing. And by the end of it, I counted the words up, and I'd written like 30,000 words, and I thought, hang on a minute, wow. That's about a third of a novel. Maybe, you know, maybe it isn't quite as impossible as I thought it was. And I came home and I tarted those 30,000 words up, and I sent them off, and I got an agent, and that agent sent those 30,000 words off, and a bunch of publishers wanted to publish it, and that's it. I was away. I hadn't even finished the book. I'd just written 30,000 words, but I had my publishing deal. Stupidly lucky. I mean, stupidly lucky. I know that.
It's amazing the fact that you counted 30,000 words on a page as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I actually went 1, 2, 3. Yeah. What I did was I figured there were about probably 250 words every page.
Yeah, average.
So I sort of went, hang on a minute, you know, that's maybe a third or a quarter of a novel I've written here. Obviously, the daunting thing then was to finish it once I'd got a publishing deal. Thought, better finish this.
I mean, being a comedian is a very daunting thing, right? And I mean, I know you said you stood up in front of kids in school, and that's quite scary to some people, you know, just doing that. So how far did comedy go? Were you actually on stage in front of a big crowd? How did that work?
Oh, God, yeah. No, I mean, I worked as a stand-up for 20 years. I mean, I worked at the Comedy Store for 15 years. I suppose that happened once I'd started to fall out of love with acting, or acting had started to fall out of love with me, because stand-up is one of the few jobs that the luck doesn't really play a part. Yeah. I mean, if you want to end up being, you know, Michael McIntyre or, you know, Lee Mack or something, you do need that little finger of fate to go you know, and propel you to the Apollo and the O2 and stuff. But in terms of making a good living, playing at all the big clubs, if you can do the job, you get the work. You know, if you get the laughs, they'll book you again next month. So there isn't that element of luck that is involved, I think, in writing or acting or music. So a lot of people who weren't cutting it as actors like me sort of drifted into stand-up. And it was a boom time for stand-up as well, the mid-1980s. And yeah, made a living doing that for the best part of 20 years, traveled all over the world doing it. And, you know, I started to fall out of love with grubby dressing rooms at 3 a.m. and endless trips up and down the motorway and stuff. But the actual 20 minutes or 40 minutes on stage, I still miss. I mean, I didn't stop doing stand-up till about 2006. I'd already published 5 or 6 novels by then, and eventually was having to do so much traveling with the books that, and had a young family. So, you know, the two things, just something had to give. So I knocked stand-up on the head, much to the relief of comedy goers everywhere, and and just concentrated on the books.
Do you have it's probably a comic thing, but do you have a favorite service station in the UK?
Oh, we'd all meet up. You'd see all the comics. I mean, you hear stories about that, how that used to happen with all the touring bands in the 60s. You know, the Beatles would rock up at a service station, the Rolling Stones would be over there, and the Moody Blues would be over there. You'd pull into some grubby service station on the M1 at 2 in the morning, and you'd know half a dozen other comics sitting, eating overpriced, you know, cheese on toast or whatever it was. Happy days.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into your writing a bit then, because we will talk about your new novel shortly. But going back to, you know, 2001, I think you mentioned that it was your first book, which actually went on to be an option as well. So your character Thorne at the time, how much preparation was there into that character before started writing it? Was there any idea that it would propel into a whole series?
No, none at all. None at all. In a way, he wasn't the main character in that first book. I mean, he ended up being, because he had more stage time, if you like. But I was really writing about the victim of this crime. It was a young woman called Alison, who spends the entire book in a coma. So you're in her head. And that was really what I wanted to write about. But I needed a copper, so I just put one on the page gave him a name. He was named after another comedian, friend of mine called Paul Thorne, as were a lot of the characters actually named after comedians back then. And off I went, didn't think about him at all. And actually, I didn't write like a Bible. I didn't write a kind of dossier of facts about him. You know, this is where he went to school, this is what he has for breakfast. I didn't know any of that. And I still don't. I still don't know any more about him after 17 novels now than the reader does, book on book. I genuinely don't. And I'm glad I took that decision, because it means that he can still surprise me. I can still do things with, you know what I mean? It's not all planned out. He's unpredictable. And if he's unpredictable, hopefully he stays interesting. The flip side of that is I make mistakes. I've had emails going, why are his eyes green in book 3 and brown in book 6? Or, I do get stuff wrong, but I'd rather do that, I think, than have it all mapped out.
So I take it from that, that your style of writing may be, more pantsing than it is plotted, right?
Yeah, I'm sort of in between, but I lean more towards the pantsing. I mean, I have an opening. I always have an opening scene. That's all I want to start with, is something at the end of which will leave readers going, what, who, why, and will leave me asking those questions as well, and Thorne asking those questions. And do you see what I mean? And I'll answer them. I'll find out the answers as I go, and so will my copper, and so will the reader. By about a third of the way through the book, I start to have a kind of end point in sight. I don't know how the book's going to end. I don't know physically who's going to live, who's going to die, whatever it might be. But I know, and this is a strange way to put it, but it's the only way I know how to put it. I know the taste I want to leave in the reader's mouth. I know how I want the reader to feel at the end of the book. So, many writers have talked about this, but it's like driving through fog at night. I'm trying to get from A to B through fog at night, and I can only see as far as the end of my headlights. So it's a very circuitous journey, but I'll get there eventually.
So this is something that I'm not struggling with. I kind of write in a similar way, very loose planner, but pants a lot. So if what I'm writing at the moment is not connected to the series that I've written, which I've heard you talk about before, that you like to, leave it kind of out there so it comes back fresh. Yeah. How do you approach coming back to something? I know you said you made mistakes, but do you just jump back into that story, or do you have to kind of refresh yourself on exactly where the journey's gone so far?
I do have to do a little bit of revision. I do have to do a little bit of revision. I don't reread anything from that I've written before, but I do have to sort of remind myself, okay, where did I leave him? Where did I leave him a year ago? How did that last book end? Oh yeah. And again, it's more like how was he feeling at the end of that book? Yeah. And in terms of, it's how you age your characters, isn't it? I mean, I started aging Tom Thorne in real time, and then very really quickly realized I'd made a rod for my own back. So stopped doing that. In that, even though there's a year between books, there's not necessarily a year between cases, right? The case I've just written for him with the book, which will be coming out next year, that might be happening a month after the previous one finished. He is getting older. There's no question he's getting older, just not quite as quickly as I am.
Amazing. So obviously, you've written. I'm gonna around 27 books. Is that right? I mean, it's up there, right?
What have I written? 17 Thorne novels, 4 standalones, trilogy of YA books, music book. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. It's an incredible amount of writing. So how has your journey in terms of being a writer, has it changed from A to B, but also has it changed or fluctuated within that process as well? How much has it changed?
It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed in the kind of important ways, in that, look, maybe it's because I'm loyal, or maybe it's because I'm scared, or maybe it's because I just don't like change. But I've only ever had one agent and one publisher for the whole time, and I'm very happy that because I've built up a relationship, obviously, over 2 decades with those people, and so the publisher feels like a family to me. And I know they're a traditional publisher; it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's all I've ever known. The whole sort of explosion in indie publishing and stuff didn't really happen until after I'd started. So it wasn't like I ever had that choice, or ever even considered that. I did what you were traditionally supposed to do: 3 chapters and a synopsis, send them off, and got myself an agent. Then that agent submitted it to a bunch of publishers, just doing it completely the traditional way. And I wouldn't know any other way to do it. Yeah. And they've been very good to me. I've written the book they want every year. I'm kind of disciplined. I'm not disciplined in that, I don't write every day. I don't write 9 to 5 when I do write. I might write from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. and then not write for 2 days. I mean, it's not a normal job, but it is a job in that I do have to do it and get it done by a certain time. And I'm pretty good at doing that, turning it in,
Yeah, I do like the idea of sat, next to a beach with a beer, doing it that way. I haven't tried that yet.
Well, do you know what? I wish I could. I can't do that. I can only write sitting in this chair at this desk. I can't write, and that's why I have to be very disciplined in that I know I'm going to spend a number of months every year promoting previous books, either in this country or in other countries where the books are published. I've got to travel and do, and I cannot write on a train or in a hotel room, or I just can't do it. You know, I've got a little notebook with me. I've got a little notebook. This is the last one that says book 22. And I might scribble down stuff in it, the odd snippet of dialogue over here, or you know, kill him in chapter 14. But I don't actually get any writing done. I can only do that at home. So I've got to go, this is writing time, this is traveling and showing off time. And don't get me wrong, I love the showing off time.
Yeah.
That's the best bit of the job, you know.
It's fantastic. Mario says 27 books, Mark Slacker.
I know, lazy shit.
Yeah. Okay. So for the people that are watching this now or listening back that haven't quite got into Rabbit Hole yet, can you tell us a bit about that, and you know, kind of what direction that may be taking? Is there something coming after that? Or what's your next book about?
Okay. Well, Rabbit Hole is a standalone novel. Okay. The book previous to that was a slightly different novel as well, because that was the 20th crime novel. I wanted to do something different, so that was a prequel. I wrote a prequel to the first Thorne novel. So Rabbit Hole is the book following that, and it's a standalone. Although, as with all the standalones I've written, Tom Thorne makes a little cameo appearance. He always sneaks in there somewhere. Yeah. It's set on an acute psychiatric ward in North London, and a murder is committed on the ward. And Detective Constable Alice Armitage has to investigate. The only problem being she's also a patient on said psychiatric ward. So it's kind of a very strange and twisted locked room mystery. Because Alice, as she admits very early on, is a supremely unreliable narrator. She's medicated up to her eyeballs. She doesn't know what's real, what isn't real. You know, she can't trust anybody, least of all herself. So it was a book I wrote really quickly during lockdown, in the early months of lockdown, much quicker than I've written anything before. Yeah. Largely because I couldn't do anything else but write. I couldn't go anywhere. There, you know, the festivals were all cancelled. There was, you know, no bookshop events. So I just got my head down and wrote the book very quickly. It was also a book it's a book I was kind of connected to, in that both a close family member and my closest friend had spent time on a unit like that. So it was a place I knew, and I knew it was something I had to write about. Wasn't always easy to write because of that, but I'm really glad. But actually, it's also probably the funniest book I've written by a long way, because there's a lot of very, very dark humor in a place like that. So yeah, I you know, you're always a bit nervous. I'm a bit nervous whenever it's a standalone, even though I've written 4 of them now, because there is, you know, people go, no, it's not another Thorne novel. You know, people do like that hit of a series every year. But like you said, the only way to keep it fresh for me is to step away and do something else every few years. You've got to, you know, you got to do something else. So
I mean, how much pressure is there from your a very loyal fan base, of course, that, you know, expects a Thorne novel, but then it isn't? Is there a kind of hang on, or is there, okay, let's see what's happening here? No,
I think I was nervous when I did it the first time. I think I'd written something like 5 Thorne novels, maybe even 6, before I wrote my first standalone, which is a book called In the Dark. Very nervous about it, and I remember chatting with Michael Connolly about this, and it's who I learned this from, because he did exactly the same with the Harry Bosch novels. He wrote 5 or 6 Harry Bosch novels, then wrote The Poet, which was a big breakthrough, you know, big book. But he said, be prepared for a drop in sales. And I went, oh, cheers, Mike. But there wasn't. I mean, I think people now are used to that pattern. And all the people that write, you know, all the people that work in the same area I do, you know, well, Michael Connolly, obviously, Ian Rankin, people that write, you know, long-running UK-based series, well, not Michael, US-based, but they tend to follow that pattern. You know, it's not, they go off and they do other things, or they collaborate with other people and do different stuff. But certainly you can't just write another series novel every year, because we all live in fear of the series that goes beyond its sell-by date. You know, those series are out there. We whisper them in corners when we're all gathered. And, you know, you don't want to be that writer that writes a couple of books too many. So the way to do that is to keep your series fresh by going off and doing something else. I finished Rabbit Hole, got straight onto the next Thorne book, which is done and dusted. So there is a new Thorne novel coming next year. That's written. That's called The Murder Book, and that will be out in a year's time. Yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, something that's been going on, you know, is sort of prolific as the Thorne novels. Do you get kind of input from your fans as where they kind of want the story to go, and do you ever lean on that at all?
Yeah, I all the time, and it's really nice. I mean, and I'm not saying that I will immediately go, "You're absolutely right. I'll change that."
Yeah.
For the next book. But they all have opinions. Oh, Thorne shouldn't be going out with her. Oh, no, that's never going to work. He should go out with her, or he should just face his true nature and shack up with Phil Hendricks. I get all sorts of things. I get sent CDs of music he'd like. Wow. And hey, a free CD is free CD. No, people, and it's kind of flattering that people are invested. You know, in the best example of this I ever saw was there's a wonderful book which I would urge people watching this to get if they're remotely interested in crime fiction, called Books to Die For, edited by John Connolly and Declan Burke a few years ago, and it basically. Every crime writer you can think of wrote an essay about their favorite crime novel. The one I did I did an essay on the Maltese Falcon. But you know, every crime writer on your bookshelves will be in this book. It's a wonderful reference book. And a bunch of us were at the World Mystery Convention one year, so there was a mass signing. So like 30 of us in a big semicircle alphabetically as this signing, which went on for hours. But alphabetically, I'm sat next to Lee Child, and we're chatting away and we're signing away. And this is just before the first Reacher movie came out with Tom Cruise, and there were people screaming in Lee's face. I mean, literally screaming, "How could you? How could you? Tom Cruise is this big!" Really getting animated and angry. And Lee was like, "Calm down, you know, wait till you see the film." But he said afterwards, it's kind of flattering that they care about the character so much, because the character is as much theirs as it is the writers. You know, once a book is written and then it's read, and until it's read, it doesn't really exist. It's a sort of two-part process. And so anything the reader thinks, it's especially true for me about things like what a character looks like, because I've never really described Thorne, and for me, it never really mattered what he looks like, because I'm looking out at the world through his eyes. I know what he thinks about stuff, but I've never really cared what he looked like. So when we had David Morrissey playing Thorne on TV, some people got very well. I remember we were at the Edinburgh Festival and we showed a kind of trailer, big long trailer of the TV show that was coming out like a month down the line. And the lights went down and we showed this trailer, and I was sat there on stage and enormously proud of it. And then the lights went up and I said, "What do you think?" And a woman on the front row went, "He's too tall." And she went, "Oh, okay." You know, because that's the thing. You have your own idea about a character. It's the reader that puts the flesh and bones on the character. Anything else is what Elmore Leonard used to call doing the reader's job for them. Telling them exactly what a character looks like and exactly what they're thinking, and exactly, you know, you've got to let the reader do some work.
Definitely. I mean, it's fantastic that you get that input from the readers as well. And I imagine you've had more than a CD sent to you. Have you had any fun stories about signings, or perhaps something sent into you that was a bit odd?
Well, a lot of people want you to murder their nearest and dearest in books in very strange ways. You know, not just going to have, you know, naming a character, which sometimes you do for charity or whatever, you auction off, you know, a character name, but, you know, specific requests to murder somebody of this name in a very brutal fashion. I'm always slightly disturbed by that. And some of the stuff I was doing some research for a book once, and I needed to find out what a body would look like if it was dug up from a shallow grave after like 2 years or something. This is, of course, how we spend our day. And so I found a forensic anthropology news group this is back in the days of news groups. And I posted this question. I said, "Look, this is a research question. You know, what would a body look like?" And the next day I start getting all these emails, really helpful emails. You know, well, it would depend on the weather, the climate would be important, the type of soil, very important. If the body was buried near a railway line, then creosote from the ties on the railway line would leach into the soil and help preserve the bones. Really helpful. Wow. And then I clicked on an email that just said, "Burying them nude is best." And I'm like, whoa! So,
yes.
you know, there are some strange people out there.
I can imagine. Interesting facts, though. Very, very interesting.
Oh, yeah, that you can find. I mean, research, really, the best research is just talking to people. And whenever I've had to go and talk to people like a forensic archaeologist or a neurologist or coppers or paramedics or, you know, lawyers, you find out the stuff you need to find out quite quickly, and then you just buy them a drink and let them tell you stories. Yeah, you know, and you find out so much amazing stuff that you'd never considered that finds its way into the book. That really is the best kind of research, rather than sitting there on the internet. Just approach some people nicely and go and have a chat with them, you know. It's
also a lot safer, right? Because if your computer ever got seized for whatever reason,
right, your browsing history is
suspicious thing in a crime writer's history, definitely.
But I've very much changed the way I do research. I don't do nearly as much of it as I used to. I used to be, really crackers about research. I would drive to a set of traffic lights at 3 o'clock in the morning just to be sure you could turn left, because I don't want to get the angry letters. And the thing is, you're always going to get the angry emails. The letters used to be in green ink, but the emails pointing out, where your otherwise excellent book was spoiled by the, where you've gone wrong. But now I just don't waste my time doing that because it doesn't matter. You know what are the things you need to get right, and you need to get them right. Firstly, if your plot hinges on something, you really better get it right. But also, if you're dealing, like with something like Rabbit Hole, it was certainly the case. With any books where I've dealt with medical issues, a book I wrote called Love Like Blood about so-called honor killing, there were things in those books I really needed to get right, because you can't take liberties with that stuff because they affect a lot of people's lives. But getting the right acronym for that police unit, or what kind of weapon a firearms officer would, you know what I mean? That stuff doesn't really matter. It's fiction,
Yeah, it's the technical of things. When you write a character for so long, you've really got to be keeping the interest of the reader, very, very strongly over a long period of time. For someone who's starting out as a crime writer, who wants to be a crime writer and starting to develop these characters, what tips might you have to give them that can just help them with that character development?
Your character, the character's got to be engaging, but that doesn't mean that the character has to be always likable. I think that's that's one of the things I really hate is the idea that, I mentioned The Maltese Falcon as my favorite crime novel. There isn't a single likable character in that book, not even Sam Spade, least of all Sam Spade. Your character's got to be somebody that the reader can empathize with, not necessarily sympathize with, and not necessarily like all the time. And I'm not just talking about villains and killers. I'm talking about your in inverted commas heroes, your sleuths, professional or otherwise. You've just got to make them real, and that is how you create suspense. It really is, because I've done so many flipping workshops and stuff over the years where you get asked how do you create suspense, and there are all these weapons that as a crime writer you have in your armory, the reveal and the twist, and the cliffhanger and all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, the day you think of a great twist is a great day at the office. But if you can give readers characters they care about, then you've got suspense from page one, because it says what these books are on the back. They're in the crime section of the bookshop. The reader knows there's bad stuff coming. Yeah. So right away, you give them somebody they can care about, then you've got suspense. Everything comes from character, everything. But also, I wouldn't spend too much, and I've said, and I'm saying this just because it's the way I did it. Don't spend too much working out who your character is and where they went to school and what they had for breakfast. And it really doesn't matter. Just put them on a page and let them talk. And once you've got their voice, that will tell the reader everything that they need to know. Let the reader put the flesh on your character's bones.
Amazing. That is fantastic. It's a great answer. Just before we move on then we'll have some staple questions. We'll have a new family member, and I'll explain what that is shortly. And then we'll get some questions from the community.
Okay. The community.
From the community. What have you ever thought about, you mentioned you've written some sort of comedy, whether it be dark comedy or even fantasy kind of work. Are you ever going to change genre at this time? What's your plans? Is there some excitement out there?
No, I don't think so. I write crime fiction because I love crime fiction, and I still read it voraciously. Don't have quite as much time to read it as I used to. And although ironically, I'm getting, a dozen books through the post every week, which is great. I'm not knocking it. One of the books I am most proud of is a book almost nobody bought, a book called Great Lost Albums, which was a comedy book. It's a comedy book about music that I wrote with two other crime writers, Martin Waits and Stav Sherez, and the brilliant comic writer David Quantick, who writes Veep and stuff. And we wrote this wonderful little book, well, we think it's a wonderful little book called Great Lost Albums a few years ago. And I think it probably sold about 17 copies. But I'm still enormously proud of it. But that's the closest I'm going to get to writing comedy, I think, these days. There's plenty of humor in the books, honestly, there really is, because there has to be. And I still get my stand-up kicks performing at book festivals and stuff, and my performing jollies by showing off with the band and stuff. And as long as I can still get those kicks, I'm not frustrated about the books.
The fun-loving crime writers have played many sort of festivals.
We have.
Have you got a kind of best experience with that band?
Oh, are you setting me up to talk to you about Glastonbury?
Go for it.
Obviously, it was Glastonbury. Obviously, we started the Fun Loving Crime as a kind, not as a joke, but just as a bit of fun for ourselves. And we started playing at a few book festivals, and it sort of got a bit bigger and a bit bigger, and we do more and more. And then I got the call saying, "Do you guys want to play Glastonbury?" And it's the kind of thing you joke about, when you're in a band. Yeah. Oh, when we're playing Glastonbury. And I was the one that got to send the rest of the band the email going, "This is not a joke."
They must have replied that. Yeah, we're not believing that.
Right. Yeah. And so we played Glastonbury in summer. Well, the last time Glastonbury was on. And in fact, we played another festival the next weekend called Cornbury, which I enjoyed a lot more actually because I wasn't quite as nervous as I was at Glastonbury. But yeah, it was proper bucket list, going on stage and playing on the acoustic stage at Glastonbury. It was amazing. And we've obviously not played anywhere like most other people for 18 months, but we are playing again very shortly. And yeah, we've got a bunch of gigs already lined up for next year. Can't wait.
Sounds fantastic. Everyone in the chat, you need to calm down with your questions because we haven't started question time yet. So hold on to those. You've been told off now.
What's this thing you do on a Friday, Chris? It sounded to me awfully like it might be a quiz, and I'm quite jealous.
Okay. The panel show on a Friday. It's every other Friday at the moment. Right. So what that is 2 groups of 3 or 2 teams of 3. And we've got 5 rounds of book, kind of TV, film knowledge, and some impressions thrown in there as well to try and see who can take the title and get the most points to win the show. So,
okay.
Put you on the waiting list for that one, is it?
Yes, please. Anything
definitely.
Teams of 3 and quiz questions and impressions. I'm there.
That sounds fantastic. But you need to bring a team with you. So you need to
I see. Okay,
select your warriors carefully, like the others have. Yeah,
well, I mean, I'm a quiz lunatic, and again, one of the other high points, apart from the band playing at Glastonbury, was when me and 3 other crime writers went on Eggheads and spanked them.
Yes,
we spanked them. Oh, what a day that was! That was just glorious.
Who was hosting that show then? Was it
Jeremy Hine?
Jeremy Hine, yes. Sorry, JB. Jeremy Hine. He's still going, is he, or is that changed now?
I don't know. I haven't seen him for a while, actually. But it was a very special day.
What about Richard Osmond? Are you going to try and get yourself on Pointless then?
I've done Pointless 3 times.
Oh, there you go. Shows how much I know.
There's my Pointless trophy over there. Oh, wow. Yeah, I've done Pointless Celebrities 3 times, and in fact, me and Richard Osman are, and this is not a big coup or anything because we announced this at Harrogate, but we're doing a theatre tour together in February next year. Just doing a sort of 2-man show, playing some games, telling jokes, showing off. Coming to a city near you in February.
Definitely. You will have to try and check into that one. Okay, so this part of the show, in fact, I need to slow down as well. So what we're going to do is ask a few questions that the show likes to ask. So if you could take a character from anything at all, whether that be TV, film, or literature, and either throw it into one of your stories or create something new with it, what character would you choose and why?
Oh, like one of those that you can take a character who isn't around anymore because the person who created him is dead.
Any character, even a current one.
Well, my favorite TV show when I was a kid, or one of them, was a show called The Persuaders with Roger Moore and Tony Curtis, which still has the best theme tune ever. I urge anybody watching this, go listen to the theme tune to The Persuaders. It was written by John Barry. Down, 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 down. In fact, the best title sequence ever. Just brilliant. And I'm amazed nobody has turned that into a big budget movie. I mean, it was such a great idea. You've got this kind of sharp American huckster guy and a sort of posh English lord fighting crime. It was just, I wouldn't mind writing. Wouldn't mind writing about The Persuaders.
That's fantastic. Maybe you need to pitch that as well for a movie update.
Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. So, okay, next question. If you could change the ending, very similar kind of concept, to anything, again, TV, film, or literature, it doesn't have to be a good ending or a bad ending, but change the ending and adapt it to whatever you want to. What ending would you change? I was never really comfortable with the ending of Hannibal. It was, I was one of the people who queued outside Murder One in London to buy that book at midnight because it had been so long, since Silence of the Lambs, and which is wonderful thriller, and was hugely excited about Hannibal and largely enjoyed Hannibal. But the ending slightly, and I can't say what it is to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read it, but I'd sort of like to change that, I think. Okay. Fantastic. This next question may be a bit unusual because you have achieved quite a lot already. So if you were, on your deathbed, it's a bit morbid, looking back at your career, and what could you highlight as success, or what can you still do that you would say?
I would love to have my own radio show. I've got a real passion for radio. I've done some bits and bobs. There's a show on BBC Six Music called Paperback Writers where they give you an hour, and I've done it a couple of times where you basically play whatever songs you want to play for an hour and talk about them and how they've influenced your work or why you like them or whatever. And the thought of doing that like once a week or 3 times a week and getting guests on and chatting to them, kind of like, I like this, and getting people to phone in and so, I would love my own radio show.
Definitely. It's a fantastic thing. Wouldn't he be great hosting a radio show, says Joanne? Absolutely.
Yes, I would.
You would.
If you are out there, if you have the power to make this happen.
You've heard it here first. A new radio show coming your way. No, it is fantastic. And the best thing about it is the stories that the people can give you and their experiences. So throw the music in there as well. You've got a winning combination, of course.
I love it. I love radio, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we best move on. New family member on Twitter. When someone follows the show, not when everyone follows, but recently, we pick someone who hasn't got much of a following to give them a boost. Okay. But what we do is send them a GIF. Do you know what a GIF is? Or is it a GIF? I still don't know.
I'm not that old.
Well, Ian Rankin on the show, very embarrassingly, picked up something and actually mailed someone a gift off the back of this, which was absolute gold. But, bless his heart, he still sent it. And this woman got a special one-of-a-kind beer mat signed by Ian Rankin.
There you go. That's better than a GIF, isn't it?
It is. But we'll send a GIF, and I'll announce who that is. And you can think of a GIF, and it could be anything at all, any subject, any theme, and the audience will send gifts to that person. So let me play the introduction, and then I'll show you who that is.
All right.
So this person is Alma Delmar, and that Twitter is at Alma Delmar6. The bio says, in this life, I'm just a happy mum and I build happy for me and my family, which is a wonderful message. She has 176 followers and follow the show. So, Mark, what GIF are we going to send this person?
Now, here I am saying very confidently, I know what a GIF is. And now I'm going to... A GIF is a kind of like a little video clip, like a little
Absolutely.
Short. Yeah. Okay. I saw a GIF online the other day, and I just sat and watched it for way too long. It was just a GIF of a little pig, of a baby pig, a piglet just being brushed with a hairbrush, and just the look on this pig's face. Honestly, you just watch it all day long. Or no, there's even no, I've changed my mind now. Look for the GIFs of porcupines eating. Little baby porcupines, when they eat, they literally go. They make the most beautiful, wonderful noises. Porcupine eating fruit. That's what I'm going to send to Alma.
You are absolutely coming on the impression show for the impressions, because that was fantastic.
If I can do a baby porcupine, I can do anybody. Also, I'm fascinated by Alma going, in this life, I'm just a happy mum. How many other lives have you got, Alma?
That is a fascinating point you just made there.
Yeah, in another life, I'm a merciless psychopathic murderer. But anyway, you'll enjoy the porcupine, I promise. Yeah,
so people, please send that person a porcupine, but also remember to welcome them to the show. Otherwise, it might get a bit weird. But fantastic. Thank you very much. Let me remove that. Okay, guys, send in your question. Once you've done the tweet in, send in your questions for Mark, or for me, or for both of us, or for whatever you want to send in, within reason. Send them into the show now, and I will ask them very shortly. But before I do that, Mark, I want to ask you one more question, and that is, if you could recommend an author that you're really into, doesn't have to be your favorite, although if you want to be put on the spot, to the audience, who would you recommend and why?
Well, I would obviously recommend all my fellow bandmates in the Fun-Loving Crime Writers. So that's Val McDermott and Chris Brookmeyer and Stuart Neville and Luca Veste and Doug Johnston. You cannot go wrong with any of those. A writer who there are not that many writers where you hear a whisper they've got a book coming out. And I'm instantly contacting their publisher and just shamelessly scrounging a manuscript, an early proof, anything. And a writer that would firmly fit into that category for me is Mick Herron, who I didn't like books about spies until I read Mick Herron. They are just wonderful. Start with Slow Horses, and they are like crack cocaine, I promise you. But cheaper, and they won't kill you.
And last longer.
Yeah, they last long and you won't stop. So they're the Slough House books. The first one is Slow Horses, coming to a TV screen near you, starring Gary Oldman very soon.
Wow.
But yeah, read Slow Horses by Mick Herron.
Yeah.
You'll thank
guys. Yeah, keep the questions coming in. I know there were some earlier, but I can't scroll back that fast. You'll have to send them again. Okay. Actually, I'm lying. I've got one more question. Obviously, you had 2 series made off the back of your books. If there was, say, another one, is there a casting that you haven't had that you'd really want?
Casting.
Yeah.
The thing about casting is, I'm lucky. I did have, I'm sort of made the David Morrissey thing happen because I just kept saying his name until eventually he found out about it. And the woman who played the lead, Maya Buring, who played the lead, played Helen Weeks in the Dark on the BBC. Again, she was my idea. I just went, she's perfect. Yeah. But most of the time, it's so out of your control that the best thing you can do is have fun with it. And imagine casting your book using only carry-on actors. I used to do that quite a lot, so that Sid James would be Thorne, and his boss would be Kenneth Williams, and just Charles Hawtrey would be in it, and Barbara Windsor, and that's the way to do it. So then Thorne would go, "You're arrested, mate." You can just have lots of fun by having silly fantasy casting. Look, don't get me wrong. If some massive Hollywood movie star wants to play Tom Thorne in a big movie, I'm not going to argue. Not that I have the chance to argue; they wouldn't let me. But yeah, just have fun. Anything on telly. Look, I've got various little TV projects that may or almost certainly may not happen, and there's no point even thinking about them until you're literally standing on the set watching the director say action, because they take you out for lunches and they promise you this and they promise you that, and nothing happens. At least when I write a book, I know it's going to come out. So that's what I always go back to, really.
What a bunch of teasers, eh? At least they take you out to dinner.
They bloody are. Yeah, you get some lunch. You do get a nice lunch.
Yeah, nice work. Okay, some questions from the community. Thank you, guys. Keep them coming in. We'll get as many in as we can. We're just over 10 minutes left. Lyth says, how many words do you write on average when you do take the time to write?
If I've done 12 or 1,500 words in a day, that's a very good day. I'm very, very happy with that. I would very rarely do more than that. But like I say, that day I might sit down at my desk at 9 o'clock and just tit about, answering emails, wasting time on Twitter and whatever, get nothing done, and then go back to my desk at 2 o'clock in the morning and get my day's work done then.
Kind of sounds familiar.
Yeah, because it's really not 9 to 5. It's really not. But yeah, 1,000 words. I'm happy with 1,000 words. Anything more than that is a bonus.
Here's another cheeky question for me then. You love music, obviously. I do too. And my first 2 books, I wrote to the same playlist over and over. Now, weirdly, I'm going into the weird railway sounds and rain and thunder and stuff. Okay. I don't know why that's happened, but do you listen to music when you write? I
can't do it. I certainly could never do anything that had anything that had lyrics, because I'm lost in the song or the story of the song, and I just completely lose my focus. So I thought, I'll just try some instrumental music. So I started putting instrumental music on soundtracks, Ennio Morricone, but I just couldn't. I'd get lost in that. So no, I write in complete bloody silence, other than the odd shouting child.
Mario says, and I'm guessing this is going to be a nocturnal answer, is there a time of day that you're more prolific at writing?
It does tend to be late, and there are practical reasons for that. Obviously, you sit down to write at midnight. There's no emails arriving. You know what I mean? Twitter is a lot less busy. You don't have to deal with any of that stuff. Everybody else in the house is asleep, so it's quiet. And most importantly, I'm looking out of this window now at nothing. I'm looking out at darkness. I'm not going, oh, look, a woodpecker. Oh, look, a squirrel's getting the bird feeder. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not distracted by stuff that's going on. I find it much easier to focus after dark, yeah. And it kind of reflects the stuff I'm writing, Okay.
A question from Anya. Has a character from a movie, TV show, book, etc. dreamt the shark, so to speak? I don't entirely know what that means.
Oh, you don't know what jump the shark means?
No.
Well, it means, I'll tell you, in fact, where it came from. But it means now it's got ridiculous. It's kind of, it's gone too far. It's getting silly. It's past its sell-by date. And it's based on an old episode of Happy Days. Remember Happy Days?
Yeah, yeah.
There's an episode where the Fonz jumps over a shark on water skis. There's some ludicrous episode of Happy Days. I don't know if I've ever seen it, but that was the episode where people, they now use that expression, jump the shark, to mean this series should stop now.
That is A, amazing, and B, exactly why you're on Eggheads and I wasn't.
Yeah, okay. But I think there are plenty of books or series that have. I am absolutely not going to name them, though. I would not do that. Crime Writers are a very collegiate bunch. We would not do that. TV shows that have gone on too long. I maybe thought Luther. I thought Luther kind of jumped the shark by the end. I can't remember how many series there were, but early on I thought it was fantastic and absolutely compelling, and Idris Elba is just brilliant. By the end of it, I just felt like it was starting to get a bit silly for me. But no, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, except lots of book series, but I'm not going to mention them. You know who they are, viewers.
There's a question in from someone called King. He said, will Stuart Nicklin reappear in your Thorne novels? Can you give that away?
Well, all I can say is that the book that's coming out next year, which is called The Murder Book, which is a Thorne novel, will see the return of several old friends who haven't been around for a while and one old enemy. Ooh. So kind of yes is the answer.
Okay. Mario had an earlier question that I want to know about. Is there we've already done this question.
We've done that.
We've done that. That's cheeky.
On that one.
Let me have a little look. I'm lucky if I can get 1K. What was that refer to?
1,000 words.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, of course, those 1,000 words, by the time you're done editing them, won't be 1,000 words. They'll probably end up being 250 good words. And it's weird. I mean, I think there are two types of writers. There are the writers that just go type, right. The end. Now I'll go back. And make it all work and rewrite it and edit it. I can't do that. I can't really write chapter 2 until I'm absolutely satisfied with chapter 1. And that goes for every paragraph and every sentence. It's a very slow kind of accretion, but I can't just move forward until I'm happy with how things. And that's not to say that then the whole thing doesn't need editing, because of course it does. But I do tend to move quite slowly. I can't just move forward while I'm still worried about that thing I haven't fixed, in the previous chapter. I have to make sure everything's right before I can crack on.
I am definitely the opposite to that. I will
just want to just go,
smash it out and go back to the skeleton. That definitely.
I think there are pros and cons to both ways of doing it. And for example, research, the way research fits into that. There are a lot of writers who now counterintuitively do their research afterwards, because they go, blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, here's the bit about the saxophone player. Now, I could either stop and then spend 3 months interviewing the country's foremost saxophone players and researching saxophones in the British Library, or I could just go bit about saxophone and then press forward. And by the time I come back to it in a month's time, I'll know what I need to find out about playing the saxophone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because you do too much research. We've all read books like this. You're then tempted to crowbar every bloody thing you found out into the book at the expense of the narrative. I found out about this. Now you're going to bloody well know about it. And we all hate that kind of info dump. So you got to wear your research lightly,
Definitely sprinkle the info in there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Or you'll jump the shark.
Or you'll jump the shark. Definitely. Anya says, silly question. Love those. If you could have a little porcupine as a pet, would you?
Oh, well, it'd be endlessly amusing just to watch them eat fruit and go, but I don't know how easy a porcupine is to keep as a pet. I suspect, they can be a bit spiky. I don't know. But if I could have a baby one for a while and then give it back to kind of a zoo or something like that, yeah, I'd have a porcupine. Not sure how my dogs and cats would react to a porcupine in the house.
A bit spiky is a great accurate description. Joanne says, I want a baby porcupine and a hippo.
And a hippo? Do you mean a little baby? Do you mean like a pygmy hippo? Pygmy hippo is very, very sweet, but you don't want a hippo in your house.
Well, I have seen a documentary on someone that lived with a hippo in Africa, but they are one of the most dangerous things in the world.
They kill more people in Africa than any other animal. Hippos.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's people stumbling across them at night, you know, out of their lovely fancy safari lodges. Oh, I'll just go down in the moonlight, you know.
And I imagine if a hippo in your house rolled over and landed on a porcupine, it wouldn't be too impressed either.
Also, how big is your house? If you can just have a hippo strolling about and not taking up too much room.
Apparently, no, a tiny hippo, like a house hippo.
A house hippo? Is that a thing? You go to the pet shop. I just want a house hippo.
I might have to Google house hippo right now.
But yeah, pygmy hippo is what you want. Little baby pygmy hippo. There's lots of cute YouTube videos of them. Not that I spent my life looking at cute YouTube videos of porcupines or baby pigs or hippos.
Oh my goodness. That just looks like a guinea pig. That can't be a house hippo. Anyway, I'm moving on from that.
Have you just Googled house hippo?
I have.
Okay.
Okay, right. We're coming up towards the end, guys. If you have any more, throw a question, one or two in, and we'll finish up. Okay, have you ever asked someone a questions for research and they gave you way too much information?
Yeah, well, like I said, there was the infamous
body.
burying them nude is best, which was the scariest response I've ever got. But no, I've always found when I've been talking to people about, you know, the things that they're experts on, as I say, they will tell you stuff that you just never dreamed. You know, you'd never dreamed they would tell you these stories, and some of them are just too good. Okay, I'll just give you one very quick example. So I've been out several times on overnight ride-alongs with cops, where to all intents and purposes I'm a copper for the night. I've got a stab vest on and all that stuff. And I'm not interested in, you know, I'm going fast in a car or anything. I'm talking about how do they speak to each other, you know, all that stuff. And I went into the police station at the beginning of the shift, and they're introducing me to everybody, and everybody's got a nickname. The banter is, you know, it's so much banter and also so many nicknames. And they went, oh, here's, you know, whatever the nicknames were. And this is Two Cats. And I went, why is he called Two Cats? And apparently he and his partner had been out in a patrol car and they'd run over a cat, right? And they're like, oh, Jesus, run over a cat. We better stop, you know. So they stopped and they went back to try and find the dead cat. And they sort of split up and they're going, because they've driven like another 100, 200 yards. So they're walking back. And one of them, he's walking on the pavement. There's this cat like splayed out on the pavement going, and the guy thought, oh my God, I better put the poor thing out of his misery. So he takes his truncheon out and he finishes this cat off. Just at the moment, he hears his mate on the other side of the road go, I found the dead cat. And it turned out that the cat he'd killed with his truncheon was just sunning itself, lying there on the pavement. No. So from that moment on, he was called Two Cats. And I'm just going, I am having that. And it's where you hear stories like that, you just know instantly. I mean, the most bizarre things, and the more bizarre things in Rabbit Hole, if anybody reads Rabbit Hole, just think, I promise you, those bits are true, completely true.
That is an incredible story and a fantastic one to end the show with.
Two Cats.
Yeah, Two Cats. Incredible. Mark, before we go, where can people go and find your new book and check out more about you? A website you can go to?
I have a website, www.markbillingham.com. The book is now out and available in all good bookshops and all terrible bookshops. Follow me at Twitter at Mark Billingham for news and the occasional gif of a baby piglet. Yeah, I'm just constantly out there shamelessly pimping myself.
Shamelessly pimping is a fantastic thing to do. Yeah, I need to do more of that, and I think a lot of the authors in the community do a very good job as well.
I mean, that's the thing. The reality of a writer's life these days is you've got to sell yourself as much as you've got to sell the book.
Definitely. So, Mark, I will keep you in mind. I will send an email about the old panel show.
Yeah.
We will set a team up to come and battle with.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you will demolish us or whoever is opposing you, should I say. Anya says, great show. Thank you for supporting us, guys, in the chat. Otters make the most adorable sounds, and I think.
Oh, do they? What's an otter sound? Oh, I'm going to have to Google that. I don't know what an otter sound.
She must be complimenting you, Mark, because your impressions, I assume, were fantastic. Because I don't know.
The porcupine was spookily good.
Oh yes, porcupine, not an otter. I do apologize.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us again. Season 6, technically, author-wise is finished. Interview-wise is finished for season 6 now. The panel show we will finish off with Friday. There'll be a week's break. Back with season 7 with a bang as always, and looking forward to it. I mean, Last year we had a very fun Halloween show, dressed up, had a few drinks, so that might be coming back in October. Lots of things to look out for. Joanne, one of the best shows ever. Thank you. Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
watching.
Thanks for watching. So stay safe. See you on Friday and look after yourselves. Go support Mark and the Beer Token.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Okay, mate. Bye.